for joining us. We are delighted to be here to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Pushcart Prize anthology. Welcome. My name is Lucinda Holt. I am the Writer Studio Executive Director. Thank you all for being here again. The Writer Studio was founded nearly 40 years ago by Pulitzer Prize winning poet Philip Schultz, and we've enjoyed a long relationship with Bill Henderson, founder and editor of the Pushcart Prize anthology. And it gives us great honor to celebrate the Pushcart Prize and the literary work of small presses. We know that many of you are joining us tonight and are dealing with adverse weather, snow, power outages, and reeling from the violence happening across our country and across the globe. May this gathering be not only a celebration of the indomitable creative spirit of so many writers around the world, but a reminder of the power of creativity in the face of tyranny. In that spirit, we invite you to listen to the work of our esteemed Pushcart Prize winning authors, including Cyrus Cassells, Shima Kalbasi, Uche Okonkwo, Chen Chen, Kia Mitra, Grace Schulman, and Charles Baxter. And now, before we hear from our readers, I have the pleasure of introducing Philip Schultz, the founder and director of the Writer Studio, an in-person and online community which has been offering writing workshops since 1987. Philip Schultz's new poetry book, Enormous Morning, published by W.W. Norton and Company, will be available in March of this year. Included among his many awards are a Pulitzer Prize, a Lamont Prize from the American Academy of Poets, and a National Book Award nomination. Philip, I invite you to say a few words before our readers read their work.
Well, Lucinda, thank you very much. And this is a very special evening for all kinds of reasons. And let me begin by saying that it is my honor to introduce Bill Henderson, the founder and editor of the Pushcart Prize, and which has earned international recognition and is now celebrating its 50th edition. Imagine that. To keep this going with this level of quality for 50 years is quite remarkable. Bill and this amazing anthology have won the Life Achievement Award from the National Book Critics Circle, the 2006 Poets and Writers Barnes and Noble Writers for Writers Award, and the 220 highest honors for literary service from the American Academy of Arts and Letters. It is a deep, deep honor to welcome Bill Henderson, who is also a dear friend and neighbor.
Hi, Phil. We're sharing the same blizzard tonight. Phil lives about, 3 miles away? I'll dig you out later, Phil. Anyway, so many things, so many people to thank. I'll make a dash at it and then I'll leave it alone because you all know this is not my deal. It's the writers around the world that have contributed to this, and their spirit keeps it going. 160 contributing editors for each edition. Thousands of small presses have contributed over the years. 8,000 nominations each year. 2,500 reprinted, 5,000 people honored, and millions, I hope, inspired. As I said, it's become an international phenomenon of the human spirit. An easy word to say, but so many places in the world, including here now, it's very hard to keep that spirit going. And small presses do that. And we're not going to be knocked down, ever. In fact, tonight, two members of our European editors, Ashley Williams and Kirby Williams, are joining us. And they're also members of our board of directors, and I thank the board of directors for helping us too, and many donors. And Norton, W.W. Norton. Over the years, Norton has stuck with us, although I don't think we make a dime for Norton. But they're a great company, independent, owned by their employees. And Phil suggested, and I certainly agree, that we ought to flog our latest book coming out, which is a collection of the 21st century, the best of our idea of the best of the 21st century Pushcart Prizes, which is 44 poems, 44 prose works, 66 poems selected from the last 25 years. The Pushcart Book of 21st Century Poetry and Prose, edited by Schultz and Henderson. It'll be out in May from Norton, hardbound, a whopper 656 pages. And I like to think of it as maybe pretty important. Who knows? But it's stuff that Phil and I love from the last 25 years of the Pushcart Prize. And I'd like to thank my doctors, too, for keeping me alive. That's helpful. Can I just read a little thing? I wasn't going to do this, but this is the introduction to the new Pushcart. Has a lot to do with Phil, because he suggested I write this in the introduction to the new Pushcart Prize, the 50th edition. After reading the draft of this introduction, a friend, Phil, asked me to tell how it feels to be an advanced age with so much literary history behind me. What does it mean to me now? Here's what. Dr. Ann Chinnis wrote to me this summer explaining how much the selection of her poem for last year's Pushcart Prize meant to her. For 30 years, she had labored as an emergency room doctor. Think about that. With all the traumas, heartbreak, and hope that her duty required. But recently, after retiring, she started to write poetry, unsure if her effort was any good, not knowing if she'd continue. Her poem, How to Be a Cowgirl, from Sky Island Journal, was selected for PP 25 by our guest poetry editors. To her, it was a huge boost. She is a poet. She is appreciated. She said the Pushcart changed her life. That's how it felt back in 1964 when I received a handwritten and hopeful rejection letter to me from the Paris Review for one of my short stories. It's changed my life. I tried to spread over 50 years that hope and understanding and confidence to thousands of writers around the world. To answer Phil's question, this feels like love. Thank you. Back to you, Lucinda and Francesca.
Thank you so much, Bill. And now I will introduce our first reader, Cyrus Cassells, who is a poet, translator, cultural critic, actor, and professor. His books have earned the Poetry Society of America's William Carlos Williams Award, a Lambda Literary Award, and 2 Pulitzer Prize nominations. He is the 2025 recipient of the Jackson Poetry Prize and has held fellowships from the Guggenheim Foundation, National Endowment of the Arts, and the Rockefeller Foundation. From 2021 to 2022, he was appointed Poet Laureate of Texas and received an Academy of American Poets Laureate Fellowship. He's a Regents professor and University Distinguished Professor of English at TXST, where he received the Presidential Excellence Award. I present to you Cyrus. You can take it away.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be part of this celebration. I reeled the old memory banks back. I realized the first edition was when I came to college, and I remember being so excited about the Pushcart Prize anthology. So I'm very pleased to be part of the 50th. This is my second Pushcart Prize, and they were 30 years apart. So you just never know. I'm going to read the poem that's in the anthology. It's called Lorca to the Umpteenth Power. It is the title poem of my latest book of poems, which is a hybrid homage of poetry and prose dedicated to the great Spanish poet Garcia Lorca, who lived from 1898 to 1936, who's always been my favorite poet. It also has illustrations by Octavio Quintanilla, who's the current Poet Laureate of Texas. There's a lot of art in the book, so this is just a special homage. And this poem is in the voice of a female soulmate of Lorca, I imagine, who grew up with him. They were pals as children. Lorca to the Umpteenth Power. You're more of a girl than I am. Time and again I teased. in the green, desultory playground of the morning poplars, but faster, faster, dead sure as a flitting will-o'-the-wisp or an inrush kestrel. As fretful tomboy and ready-set sidekick, wary of the dark, we requested, Lord Death, if we have to sleep in a coffin, can Federico still whistle the first trills of For Elise or a few bars of Maestro de Falla? Here's the core of the matter. I waited lifetimes, centuries to be your Andalusian friend, to study the fear that feasts like empty-bellied ogres on resilient villagers and scruffy peasants, on truth-telling poets and seers, but can never digest them. There's a lambent hall I visit in unveiling dreams, an everlasting theater I call Lorca to the umpteenth power, where every degree of your word sorcery is revered and enacted. Listen, our galvanizing, gust-strong feeling for each other was like a solstice shared pomegranate or a searing red ball kicked all the way out of the court. Big-headed boy, the do-re-mi and folderol of the Dowager City, the sullen cobblestone streets, even the imposing Sierras and the inveterate Iberian earth itself make no sense without your joy. Here's an earlier poem. I wanted to stay in Granada and in Gypsy culture. It's called Gypsy Wedding. In the grave-eyed time after my father's cancer, to help me to live, ayudarte a vivir, Jacinto took me to a gypsy wedding. First, a headlong accordion, a breakneck clarinet enraptured us. There were fresh-cut sunflowers, trumpet lilies, coursing, then vanishing wine, sweet mayhem as a coaxable ram climbed a gaily painted ladder to untrammeled applause, night-singing crickets at the moon's zenith. But what I prized most, beyond the bride in dogwood white, was how the father of the bow-tied, extravagantly bare-chested groom smoothed his firstborn's sweat-soaked hair with a marvelous sun-roughened hand. Ah, fatherhood! Gypsies, fathers, rams, help me to live. Here's another poem about patrimony. It's called More Than Peace and Cypresses, which is the title of my fourth book of poetry. More than peace and cypresses, emboldened hares at the field's edge. Father, I love gallantry, tenacity, the sanguine heart before the ledge, the artist questing and failing, the feet of bested Icarus plunging into the sea's crest, the artist triumphing, a page of fire from the Book of Heroes, more than light-hooved gazelles, views from the mizzenmast, enlivening shores, more than soldier-still lilies. I love the torch-like men who've taught me past the rueful glitter of lucre and guns, past the starkness of the lynching tree, the truth or bust beauty of passion transformed into sheer compassion, true shouldering, and common as breath, the extravagant wheel of birth and death. So I'm going to stop there. Thanks, everyone. And regrettably, Shima Kalbasi, who was supposed to read for us, can't be here because of a family emergency in Iran. I will read an introduction, And then Lucinda is going to read the poem of Shima that's in the anthology. So Shima Kabasi is an an Iranian Danish American poet, humanitarian, and historian. She's the author of several books, including Echoes in Exile and Spoons and Shrapnel, and the editor of the Poetry of Iranian Women and the Seven Valleys of Love. Her poetry has been translated into more than 20 languages, featured in PEN America, Writer's Digest, Kenyon Review, on PBS and NPR, and performed at venues including the Tribute World Trade Center, the Smithsonian National Museum, and the Canadian Parliament. A nominee for the PEN Award for Poetry. In translation, Kalbasi has received a United Nations Humanitarian Award and grants from the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So, Lucinda, you want to share her poem?
Yes. Thank you so much, Cyrus. Shima Kalbasi asked that I read this brief intro before I read her poem. She writes, "This poem is about the war I experienced as a child. I learned where to hide before I learned where to play. Closets became shelters. War shapes you in ways nothing else can. It teaches you to listen for danger and to measure time in explosions. This poem comes from that place, from the memory of hiding, but it also comes from love for those who did not survive and for those who are still fighting today." This is Shima Kalbasi's poem, Refuge. We hid in the mouths of closets, under the ribs of stairwells, bomb shelters like coffins in waiting. Some of us surfaced, grasping. Some, the earth swallowed whole. I was just taking a moment there. Just because she asked that we share the poem, and her family is dealing with the violence that's happening in Iran, and we know there are people even here dealing with that violence. So now I'm going to introduce Uche Okonkwo, author of A Kind of Madness Stories, which was the winner of the 2025 High Plains First Book Award, and a finalist for the 2025 NAACP Image Awards and the Reading the West Awards. Her stories have been published in A Public Space, One Story, Kenyon Review, Plowshares, The Best American Non-Required Reading 2019, and Lagos Noir, among others. A former McDowell Fellow, she's a recipient of the George Bennett Fellowship at Phillips Exeter Academy, a Steinbeck Fellowship, and an Elizabeth George Foundation grant. Okonkwo grew up in Lagos, Nigeria, and currently teaches creative writing at Oberlin College. Please welcome Uche Okonkwo.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm really glad to be here. I'm going to be reading a short excerpt from a short story from my collection, which is called A Kind of Madness. And this story is titled Burning. Adana knows her mother's faces. There is a face for the days when she wakes up with a light in her eyes and they stay home eating balls of puff-puff, batches and batches pouring out of her mother's pan and forming small steaming hills on every surface in the kitchen. On days like this, they will watch her mother's collection of Nollywood films, in which good and evil are separate like oil and water, and justice comes swift from heaven in the form of lightning. On other happy days, they visit Teju Osho Market and make their way through a maze of clothes shops, male traders whistling at their backsides and grabbing at their arms, and Adana's mother throwing smiles at them over her shoulder while Adana tries to shrink herself to nothing. When they return home with piles of clothes, Adana's mother says with a conspiratorial wink, "Good thing it's your grandfather's money paying for all this." There come the days when her mother is unable to drag herself out of bed. On these days, her face is pale with fear, her eyes darting at the slightest sound. Adana's mother buries this face in the pillow and refuses to get up, and Adana makes her own breakfast, a cup of Milo and 2 slices of bread, and eats it standing in the quiet kitchenette. Then, in the bedroom she and her mother share, she puts on her blue shirt and pink pinafore and heads for the front door, hoping to hear her mother's voice call out at the last moment with an offering. To walk with her, maybe, or a promise to be there when the bell rang at the end of the school day. One time, her mother did call out to her from under the bedding, told Adana to hold on as she put on a t-shirt and tied a wrapper around her waist. She took Adana's hand along with a deep breath, and they walked out the door together. The pressure of her mother's grip, the quiet slapping of her slippers against her feet, made up for those mornings Adana had walked alone. With her mother holding her hand, Adana would not have to tug at strangers' sleeves at the busy junction and ask for help to cross the road. But barely halfway to school, her mother's fingers went limp and let go of Adana's. Her mother sank, squatting in the street and burying her face in her hands. Adana stood stunned, feeling naked as strangers stared at them. She wanted to keep walking and ignore the anchor pulling her down, pretend that the moaning ball of flesh had no connection to her. She resisted the urge to scream at her mother, at the sky, at all the people watching them but moving on, minding their business. Instead, she knelt on the warm asphalt and rubbed her mother's back in circles, around and around. The noise of traffic and hawkers and conversation faded until all she could hear was her mother's muffled sobbing. When Adana's mother stood again, it was Adana's hand holding hers, guiding her back home. Thank you. I'm going to stop there and introduce our next reader, Chen Chen. Chen Chen is the author of 2 books of poetry. Your emergency contact has experienced an emergency. And when I grow up, I want to be a list of further possibilities, both published by BOA Editions. His latest chapbook is Explodingly Yours, published by Ghost City Press in 2023. His honors include 3 Pushcart Prizes and fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts and United States Artists. He lives in Rochester, New York, and teaches for the MFA program at New England College.
Thank you. I'm so glad and honored to be a part of this. Apologies in advance if you hear a snowplow in the background. It's been pretty constant today. Like it just keeps beeping, like it's like backing up, like all the way down the street, I think. Yeah, very happy to be here. I'm gonna read, I think 3 poems, short, including the one that's in the anthology, of course. But I'll start with this poem that's from this series that I've been working on, where the titles are all greetings or basic phrases that you might learn, when you're learning a language. So there's like hello, thank you, how are you? And this is like a way of greeting in my family and many others, this title. Have you eaten yet? Have you eaten yet? The mystery of your lungs, the spaceship of your yes, the ethereal of your puns, the eternal of your sex, the chic vivacity of your spiritual and political and sensual rage, the tiny, extremely efficient post office of your least wild dreams, the enormous hocus of your trembling pocus, the dirt of your muse, the deity of your musk. Why haven't you eaten yet this daily breath of yours? Come eat this chest magic, brain planet, this mischief and power, this anger, good anger, your anger, from which you sing your most joyful, deepest no. And this next poem is the one that's in the anthology. All I love is you, and you in the morning, and both yous are trees, and both trees poems, and the troems make me dream of a larger reality, theirs. And theirs is full of root brains, leaf minds, sap sentience, thinking such thoughts, especially of dirt, especially of water and sun sugars, and the dirtiest yet sappiest of thoughts. Yes, trees sunnily think those in public, especially in public, while getting especially leaky, as trees and poems and you, that is, troems, kinkily do. And one troem is all, and the other troem everything. And this last poem is very new. Don't really know what it is. It's called Years of the Snake. You left the Christmas tree up. I'm dozing off with those lights left on. Late January on the living room futon. 1 a.m., earlier than I've been going to sleep lately. At dinner, we talked about how late the Lunar New Year's going to be this year. Year of the horse. Do you know any horses? I asked. Older auntie, you said, on Dad's side, her daughter. She's a horse. I don't think I know any horses, I said. We had been talking as a family. You, me, my brothers. And we talked about him, though Dad had already disappeared to his room, a book. And I realized when just you and I were left at the dinner table, talking, how my brothers and I, your sons, love being alone in our rooms, too. I don't think you love being alone. You've never disappeared, even when I wanted you to. Year of the snake, our year, yours and mine, another auntie's too, your little sister. These years of the snake were coming to an end. You asked if I had been wearing red. You said you've worn red every day. You were wearing a red shirt, I realized, under your sweater and jacket. It was so cold, but the red peeked through. I think you had a better year of the snake than I did. Though really, I don't know. We haven't been talking much. We could have talked more, if not as family, then as people curious about each other, which perhaps is better. We were supposed to wear red as much as possible in your zodiac year, but I didn't. Maybe that's what I've been trying to do, carrying around this big red bag in the last spit, last hiss, and wintry slither of the year of the snake, to make up for it. The bad year I had, the bad years. Is my heart still broken, or just my ego? But you need a healthy amount of ego, said my teacher long ago. I was so young then. You hurt me and hurt me. I was trying so hard to be a Buddhist, egoless, but I was ambitious. I wanted to be every teacher's perfect pony with perfect hair, brush it, feel it. The Christmas lights are very bright, super Christmassy. I don't mind, though. In December, I didn't visit. Too busy or too sad? Too angry still? Now I'm in town for work and could have stayed with friends, but I'm not. Maybe I've been trying too hard to be a horse instead of a snake, or a person, or a light. I think I'll wear red every day this year, starting in February, first day of the Lunar New Year. It's good to have more than one New Year in the year. It's good to be too lazy or happy to take Christmas down. Christmas has lots of red, too, though compared to anything Chinese, still not enough. Some people even wear red underwear, you said, with a little snort. For that extra, you said. luck. Thank you. And now I will introduce Kia. Kia Mitra is a professor at Pacific University and a Fulbright Scholar. Her memoir, Almost Born, was a finalist for the 2025 AWP C. William Silverman Prize. Chapters have won the 2024 Prairie Schooner Nonfiction Prize and the Missouri Review's Perkoff Prize. Her short story collection, Bad Babies, was a 2024-25 finalist for the Iowa Short Fiction Award, AWP Grace Paley Prize, and Prairie Schooner Book Prize. Her fiction has appeared in the Kenyon Review, Best New American Voices, Bennington Review, and Southwest Review, and has received the Tobias Wolff Award and a 2018 Best American Short Stories Notable.
Thank you so much, Chen Chen. I loved your reading, especially the last poem. I'm so grateful and honored to be here reading alongside authors who are doing such vital, powerful work in the world. Thank you, Francesca, Bill, Lucinda, everyone who made this event possible. It's really an honor to be here. So I'm going to be reading nonfiction, and it's the essay in the Pushcart anthology. And the title is Almost Born. Days after my 11th miscarriage and 18 days into the 500-mile Camino Francés pilgrimage, I first spotted the white storks. As my husband Nick and I staggered into a rustic town in the thick of Spain's Meseta, we saw a fellow pilgrim sitting on the steps outside an albergue. We'd crossed paths with him several times since beginning our journey at the foot of the French Pyrenees. He was German, green-eyed, tan, and beautiful, and thought himself to be the next Jesus Christ. "This is a good place," he said. "There are storks here." He nursed a beer and cigarette, his German breakfast, he called it. When we'd seen him at lunchtime, he'd been enjoying the same meal. Famished by yet another 15-mile day, Nick and I sat at a nearby table devouring our 6 plates of food, 3 entrees each. Jesus in training marveled at our appetites. "We say in Germany that food is the sex of the aged," he called to us, leaving us both in stitches. He asked about my left knee, visibly red and swollen. 5 days and 75 miles earlier in Najera, a pharmacist had taken one look at it and waved her hands above her head. "No walk, no walk." Later, a masseuse exclaimed, "Your leg, very, very bad." But something in me had needed to keep going. So armed with a handheld red light therapy device and 3 different knee braces, one so high-tech that pilgrims had taken to calling me Bionic Woman or Lara Croft, I forged on. Our new friend met my eye. "You can heal yourself," he said. "Really?" I nodded, my throat dry, and thanked him. I needed to mend more than my knee. I'd injured it weeks before starting our walk 206 miles ago, around the same time that I discovered my latest pregnancy, like 10 others before it, was failing. But nothing could dissuade me from walking my way into healing. I needed something immersive and difficult to jar me out of numbness, a boot camp for the soul. You can't hike 15 to 20 miles, day after day, without being forced into mindfulness, a state of ecstatic flow. Before I'd flown to Spain, my OBGYN informed me that it might take weeks for me to start bleeding. By then, I'd stopped taking days off for miscarriages. I was a veteran with 3 years of experience to my name, an adept at multitasking. I miscarried while snorkeling in the ocean with sea turtles, on a plane, on campus during breaks. and I'd miscarry on this Camino twice. The more it happens, the less license you give yourself to mourn, especially when you're a medically fragile woman over 40 in want of a child. But every loss, every almost, left me devastated. They don't give out honorable mentions for near pregnancies. The children that never emerge from our wombs are invisible to the world, along with the humans carrying them. It's as though our lost embryos and the hope accompanying them never existed to begin with. Once our friend/divinity left, Nick and I checked into the albergue and hightailed it to the pool. Most pilgrims dread the Meseta because of the unending expanse of flat, shadeless land and the monotonous wheat fields. I love it for these same reasons. The strands of wheat swaying in the faint breeze, raptors gliding above us, and the ability to move forward one blistering step at a time under an endless blue sky untouched by my grief. Nick and I splashed around in the pool, swapping stories with a pack of 12 pilgrims as the sun began to set, and the bell tower of the cathedral opposite the pool glowed, bathed in golden light. As we played in the pool, Nick hoisted me onto his shoulders. From there, I spotted it across from the courtyard, a stork sitting atop the cathedral, hovering above a 6-foot-tall nest. In the glowing light, the stork, its gargantuan eggs, and the babies poking their heads out of the nest all shimmered white. I couldn't keep my eyes off them. Back in our room, as nightfall descended, I stood by the window. I watched as the stork stood guard over her nest on the bell tower, bathed in a ghostly, otherworldly light. There were even more of them on the other side of the tower, forming a colony to fend off predators. In the days that followed, I would see their communes everywhere, atop grocery stores, ancient castles, towers, keeping company with us pilgrims and each other. Every time I felt regenerated by their presence, by the communal. In Leon, a city that marks the Meseta's end, Nick and I have dinner with German Jesus and a 20-something tormented Italian pilgrim who fends off solicitations at every step. The Italian nurses a cigarette and cries as he shows us photos of a dying pigeon he was unable to save in the last town, then swipes to the next photo, a screenshotted sext from a pilgrim, which he shares with the same soulful earnestness. Once it becomes clear that his photo library contains much of the same, wounded animal, sext, I turn to my German friend, and we talk about storks. I describe my elation every time a town comes into focus through my sweat-stained eyes at the end of a long day, and I'd see the silhouette of a great white stork perched atop a church, as tall as a steeple, hovering above a raucous nest amid a glowing, burnt orange sky. Every time I'd surge towards the town and the commune of storks looking after their young and one another. I confide in him about my recurrent miscarriages, my hope that the storks signify a child in our future. He nods. They say the Camino never gives you what you want, he says. It gives you what you need. A waiter takes our orders then, and to my relief, he orders an actual meal and explains he has a problem with food. A year ago, he says, he was 100 pounds heavier, depressed, chronically high, living in isolation. I began to understand his depths, his suffering, even though moments later I balk when he announces to us that in 30 years, humans will no longer need food, living off love instead. Maybe he can live off love, I say, but rest assured, Nick and I will still be eating. On our longest day of the Camino, Nick and I walked over 23 miles. It was past 9 p.m. when we arrived at the town of Hospital de Orbigo, and the sky was an otherworldly orange. As we crossed an ancient 13th century stone bridge into town, I spotted dozens of storks perched atop arches, rooftops, towers, the church steeple, as if waiting for us to arrive. As usual, I stopped to marvel. I couldn't have known then that 10 days later, a familiar nausea would rise in me once again, that I would be triumphantly pregnant when Nick and I walked into Santiago de Compostela, the end of the pilgrimage, amid bagpipes and fierce embraces with our Spanish friend who walked with Parkinson's, a French pilgrim recovering from a rare blood cancer. The days later, sick with COVID, despite masking the whole way, I'd miscarry once again at Finisterre, a peninsula jutting into the Atlantic Ocean, known as both the end of the world and a place of rebirth. I couldn't have guessed that Nick and I would reunite in Finisterre with the first person we met on the Camino as we huffed our way up the French Pyrenees, that we would slog through the sand, all three of us radiantly ourselves, and walk to a lighthouse overlooking rocky cliffs plummeting into the Atlantic Ocean, that we would watch the sunset in silent awe at the mile 0.0 marker, honoring the end of our old lives and a hailing of the new. As the sky extinguished the sun's last flames, and we gazed into a vast sea, our friend marveled, "Look at us here at the end of the world. Who knew that it would be so beautiful?" So often I return to that moment and the one on the stone bridge in Hospital de Orbigo. Let me take you there to the hazy orange sky, a mind nearly clear of chatter after 23 grueling miles, to a symphony of 36 surrounding storks in their communes, clicking and clattering. You take your partner's hand and step towards them with an aching womb and full heart, longing to be brought into their fray. Thank you. So I'm so honored to introduce Grace Schulman, who's the recipient of the Frost Medal for Distinguished Lifetime Award in Poetry, and a member of the American Academy of Arts and Letters. Her 9th book of poetry is again The Dawn, New and Selected Poems, 1976 to 2022. She is Distinguished Professor Emeritus at Baruch College, CUNY, editor of the poems of Marianne Moore, and translator from the Hebrew of the poems of T. Carmi, and co-translator from the Spanish of the songs of Sifar by Pablo Antonio Cuadra. Among her other honors are the Aiken Taylor Award for Poetry, the Guggenheim Fellowship, the Delmore Schwartz Memorial Award, and 6 Pushcart Prizes. I'm so delighted to introduce Grace. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to read the poem in the current Pushcart anthology. This poem is set in a modern seaside town during an amateur production of Oedipus Rex. It refers to the plague in ancient Thebes and to a fever epidemic in a nearby modern town. Thebes revisited. Blood-red sunset on the farm. They sit waiting for the play they come for. Its notice tacked to an elm. Greek theater. Sunday, free. Actors step gingerly on land above bay's white waves, whipped by a threatening storm, and mount the stage, a cedar plank. Their masks with gaping eye holes and downturned mouths for tragedy. The locals, too, are masked as fever rages in a nearby town. This town is clean so far. April unfurls. Yellow-white daffodils spring into bloom, startled by sun that melted heavy frost. Suddenly, ancient Thebes. Look, where the bay runs shallow, an oracle sees danger. No, it's a cormorant poised on a rock, spreading out its slick black wings to dry as bearded swamp reeds dance in a muted chorus. A blue-masked woman, unfolding a blanket, baby on her back, says that she's seen the play and likes the speech about the king's ancestors. Her own, she adds, are Mulford's early settlers. Now it begins. The postal clerk as Oedipus saunters on stage, lofty for the lips inside his boots, his masked face deepening the mystery of fate. My children, tell me why you are here. The farmhand playing priest replies, the plague rages, cattle sicken, crops fail. We don't know why we're suffering. Then comes the Bayman robed as Creon, ruler of Thebes. Good news, all will be well. Just banish the old king's murderer and drive corruption from the land. Then from the audience, a man staggers and falls, his face red with the fever. Villagers look down and step aside. An outsider. The fever happens there, not here. Get him out. Send him away. Their voices rankle. Did you see his face? He's from a town up island. Late night bars. A child pulls out his phone and calls for help as men lug the sick stranger to the road. Doc Slade, local MD, waits for an ambulance while others return to watch the ending. Oedipus leaves his city. The plague is lifted. Someone sighs, it couldn't happen now. People hoist folding chairs and turn to leave, muttering, how calm the waters are. Now that a northwest wind passed over us, a good omen for tomorrow's catch. I seem to have lost my Zoom picture. I don't know what happened here, but can you hear me? Yes? Can you hear me?
Yes,
No?
we can hear you, Grace.
Okay. I'll read Um, I'd like to read a poem that I just finished writing. I think it's finished, but it was just last week, actually. It's called Bless This House. Bless this spider's web that spells welcome in gossamer calligraphy, and bless the rain's kettle drums on a cracked roof while the wind's sax tunes up in the oaks. Hallow the stone lion facing my neighbor that guards the fence between our houses, and hallow the sun's glaze on a door that creaks open to leaves turning cartwheels on slate squares. Brighten the soiled windows that still see squirrels tightrope walk on wires and trees wrapped in burlap, mummified for winter, and the skylights leaf splattered under prickles of stars. Pardon the doubleness of our desires. On the FM radio, war news blares from one station, Bach cello suites from another. And pardon the going in and the going out, brick walls that enclose us and let us go. Look kindly at my desk, unfinished plywood with zero-shaped stains, nicked by chairs, plainly unenduring, where I write lines that cried to endure. Protect the memory of my love, roasting corn on the grill, with what might have been the ardor of a Neanderthal who struck fire. Bless the laughter at my table under brown residues of roses that signal summer's end. Bless our words, whether eloquence or babble. And thanks for the wren that warbles in the woods at a safe distance from our house, our imperfections, and our lives, half in shards, half joy. Okay, that's enough. And can you hear me really? Yes? Yes?
Yes, we can still hear you, Grace.
And
Yes.
can you see me too?
Yes, we
Yes,
can
we
see
can
you
see you and hear you. It was glorious.
I can't see you, but
Oh, we're all smiling.
I'm good. I'm glad. I'm glad. Do I have time for one more short poem? No, I don't.
Sure.
You
Yes.
do?
Yeah.
Do I really?
Have you thanked everyone?
I wanted to read a short poem that was an earlier Pushcart poem, which was picked by
Shall I mute you?
our beloved Philip Schultz, poetry editor. And it's called Waves. The burst, the lilt and rock, the wheel of spray, the flash of waves exploding in hard rain. Perhaps they are the dead, their watermark the signatures of shipwrecked passengers, or coded messages from men and women desperate to tell what they have seen. Speed, thunder, surprise, the jarring thump of low bass drums, the dancers leap and bow, the gospel singers growl, the pause, the shout, dodging the beat, notes jammed with syllables, the hums, mumbles, and cries, the choruses, cymbals that gleam in sudden white gold light. Breakers roared when Cadman sang creation in a new verse with a rhythmic pull of oars. Rollers boom on a shore I cannot see, and tie me to flood dead, quake dead, war dead, disaster dead, or dead ripped from the stars. As I trudge in the shallows, sliding in wrack, orders snapped apart like a broken string, each end still aloft, trembling in air. The sea ahead, the roadways drawn behind. A wave shimmers, taking its time to fall. How all that matters is to stand fast on the ridge that's left and hear the music. Okay, Thank you. Now for Charles Baxter, who I'm honored to introduce. Charles Baxter is the author of 6 novels, including The Feast of Love, nominated for the National Book Award. His others are First Light, Saul and Patsy, Shadow Play, The Soul Thief, and The Sun Collective, and the story collections Believers, Griffin, Harmony of the World, A Relative Stranger, There's Something I Want You to Do, and Through the Safety Net. His stories have appeared in several anthologies, including the Best American Short Stories, the Pushcart Prize Anthology, and the O. Henry Prize Story Anthology. He has won the Penn Malamud Award for Excellence in the Short Story, and Charles lives in Minneapolis.
Thank you, Grace. I'm speaking to you from Minneapolis, and it was my intention this afternoon to read a piece from the current Pushcart Prize, a short prose piece called Joy, but I can't read that. I'm so conscious of the struggles that we are facing in Minneapolis that I wanted to read something that was in some way about the city and is both a celebration and an elegy. So I'm going to read a single poem to you from the 2022 Pushcart anthology, a poem called Lakewood, which is the name of the city's largest cemetery. And the poem is about a day when, during the pandemic, I happened to walk the way people were going out to walk in cemeteries and parks. And I took a walk in Lakewood, and I also happened to go to the George Floyd Square. And for George Floyd's name in this poem, you could also substitute Renee Good, the poet who was killed 3 weeks ago, or Alex Pretty, the ICU nurse who was killed a little less than a mile away from where I'm speaking to you. One thing I should say is that there are 3 initials in the poem, the GAR. It's the Grand Army of the Republic, the Union Army. Lakewood. Because the nearby parks were crowded with escapees from all the shelters, condos, apartments, rented rooms. And because the virus from which we fled had arrived wherever we were going before we got there on our own, I found myself in Lakewood Cemetery on a snapshot early summer day, seeing a "Welcome Walkers" sign out front. A sunny, cheerful city boneyard, glorious, with apple blossoms, aggressive birdsong, odor of mown grass, and twisting, indecisive roads where you could lose your intended way, and where any body was, yes, quite welcome, no matter in what direction it might transport itself. So I could be lost and found at once near the marble mausoleums, the heroic flowery cenotaphs. Hooray for all the dead. And thus, before setting out in no particular direction, I checked my iPhone for mileage, put on my sunblock, breathed in laced my running shoes, and headed over there. How cheerful all these cemetery slabs in picnic weather, the Minnesota sun shaded by that oak, this elm, a leafy frame around that marble, grieving woman quite consumed in drapery halfway up a sober-sided Greek revival pedestal whose height runs out before it can successfully penetrate the sky's iconic, brilliant blue sent to us from somewhere godlike as a gift. And there, in that glade, the marker for the author of Mr. Roberts' big Broadway hit, Thomas Hagen, who didn't know, poor guy, how the hell he ever wrote it before drowning, drunk, dispirited, more irony in the bathtub. And now white-throated sparrows set up a four-note racket near the big majestic marker for Hubert Humphrey, vice president and friend to labor. But I'm just passing by, a visitor, and so I wave to Hubert and to Tom, because in the present warmth of day, I'm sweating now, grave etiquette demanding that I do not run, but walk thoughtfully and with reverence past that canon memorial for the GAR, commemorating those old, well, they're not old, not now, veterans whom my stepfather, as a boy, once saw parading, upright, ancient men, proud to have saved the Union and to have freed the slaves. In his own old age, he said, they limped, had beards. They gave off a funny smell to him back then, a little boy, still knee-high, in spectacles, gazing at their torn blue uniforms. Walking now, I refuse the sadness invited by heraldic marble names of people, some of whom I know or knew, and having passed 2 miles, lightheaded, I discovered quite by accident the funereal stone girl with wings, somehow dove and angel both, though not especially poetic or rhetorical, like Rilke's angel, terrible to look upon, a fiery carrier of being raw and alive with the uncompromised and inhuman love to penetrate down through the flesh into the soul's unguarded heart, quivering with its own shy appetite for disillusion, into that greater being whose power can kill like childbirth while speaking German. No, this angel playing hide and seek is a harmless, local, domesticated thing, more like a hired governess, the curate's daughter, plain as day, unmarried, somehow polite. Here's a bench. Take a breather. Don't worry, I won't bite. Please, I'm your contemporary. Slow down and sit, she says. And so I do, under shades whispering in the shadow branches overhead, protecting me from sun. How calm it all seems, and how detached, not like the other part of town I just came from, both festive and funereal, where the pavements painted with the names of men and women, and flowers both fresh and wilted pile up in memory of the man who died there, neck kneeled upon, and where 1 hour ago I saw a woman head shaved, punk, wearing black, also kneeling, this time in prayer, while 1 block away, A band was playing, people dancing, handwritten signs everywhere. In joy and grief, commemorating the man who died, who is still here, living. The motto beneath his picture, I can breathe now, a recognition and refusal of his death. And who am I but a watcher at this wake, a mere old anonymous white guy, hands clasped in front of me, and surprised by sorrow, I break out into tears, overcome like everyone, and still weeping, I walk away and am stopped by a kindly woman offering to spray my hands with sanitizer. Say his name, George Floyd, American. Thinking of his face and now tiring and still shook up in Lakewood, I walk past all the Baxters underground. And now at last, I'm really lost in this gigantic landscaped, cultivated, tended, sublime locale where redundant adjectives pile up. And I can't help hearing the music from 2 miles away, or the memory thud of dirt that dropped from a shovel onto the casket of my friend's son years ago. Every death is yesterday. Every death is unerased. Sky blue air still nearby. The life is well. Clouds drift aloft. Birds sing, whereupon I cannot walk. And even though I refuse the cemetery and would like to refuse all death and all forgetting, nevertheless, I still join all the sleepers and the anonymous forgotten here. Bless them all, forgive them, and forgive me too. I'm on my knees and don't know how I got here, can't remember how I dropped down with my hands together at my forehead. And now I rise and look around and head back to my parked car and where I came from.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you so much. Thank you. I want to thank everyone who has joined us for the reading this evening. Please join me in thanking our readers who have shared their prize-winning work. I know I have been edified by their work, so thank you to Cyrus Cassells. Thank you, Shima. Kalbasi's not here, but thank you to Shima. Thank you, Uche Okonkwo. Thank you, Chin Chin. Thank you, Kiamitra. Thank you, Grace Schulman. And thank you, Charles Baxter. We so appreciate your sharing your work with us. And thank you to Bill Henderson for his commitment to publishing and elevating the work of small presses. It's because of you that we were able to gather and share this important work tonight. So thank you. Thank you, Bill. Phil, did you want to say any closing words before we say goodnight?
I'm moved beyond words. This is, my God, thank you, because I needed this. Don't we all? How beautiful, how stunningly beautiful you all are.
Thank you, Phil.
Yeah. Thank you all. Thank you. And so with that, I will say good night to everyone. Thanks again to our readers. And if you haven't already, please pick up your copy of the 50th anniversary edition of the Pushcart Prize anthology. And we look forward to the upcoming collection that will be released on May 5th. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.